Do you have a message for the police, or have you followed up with anybody with the ticket or any further action with the college, your union?
Oh, yes, I plan to file a complaint with the police, but we know complaints don't really work. So I'll say this one last thing to all the enforcement in this country, including the military, including the police. Stand up for your people. Abide by the oath that you took. Do what's right, do your investigation and your research, and quit violating the rights of everybody else.
Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
I'm Tamara Ugolini with Rebel News here in London, Ontario, in front of Fanshawe College. I'm joined here with Deven Taylor. He is a welding professor here at the college who's been facing some pretty egregious mask enforcement here in London and at the college. So there's sort of two sides, two different elements to your story. And so let's just start with the one that happened at the college here. Your union, I gather, was enforcing this mask mandate onto you to be worn under your welding helmets.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about that?
And the college as well. So the college was forcing everybody to wear a cotton cloth mask or a non-medical face covering for a medical reason, which doesn't make sense, underneath their welding mask while we're working with extreme temperatures, hot flames, and flammable material on our face, which I warned about was all the health and safety issues, right? So I was warning about this back in July when the mask mandate started coming in August. And then September 18th, I was placed on an unpaid leave because I was deemed disruptive and I refused to wear the mask. So the deal was I had to wear the mask underneath the welding helmet or I wouldn't be allowed to work at the college anymore as a professor. Well, listening to the health experts back in March, right, Fauci and Tam, well, I like to follow the real scientific evidence rather than policies that are being implemented and that are violating our rights. So I first said I have an exemption under the Ontario Human Rights Code, and they told me, your exemption doesn't count. It has to be a medical exemption, and you have to prove it. And I said, well, that's not how the law works. And they said, well, it's company policy. The Ontario Human Rights Code doesn't apply here. And I said, that's not how it works. So anyway, after about 2 months of being unpaid, on leave, I'm fighting with the union, pressurizing the union to take action against the college. They had filed a grievance for me in September when I was placed on unpaid leave, but it's going to take up to a year for that grievance to even be seen. So we're going to be starved into compliance, right? And at the same point, there's no scientific evidence or facts that the masks protect you against anything.
Well, and there's the health and safety concern that This is a fire hazard. So can you touch on that a little bit?
So with the fire hazard, I made this aware. It was in the CBC News article on September 18th as well about my warnings in regards to the health and safety of the mask and the fire hazard. I mean, think about it. We're putting a cotton cloth mask on your face and you're welding. It's not a good idea. So anyway, I said the mask is going to catch fire. CBC didn't take it seriously, the union didn't take it seriously, and the college surely didn't take it seriously. However, when I was brought back to the college after I put pressure on the union, I was brought back about 4 weeks ago. And I met up with one of my students who was my first year student last semester. His mask caught fire. His mask caught fire while I was off on unpaid leave, just like I said. But again, because of the tyrannical policies, a lot of these students are afraid to speak out. They know the truth, but they're afraid to speak out, especially when they've already invested all their money in the college.
Yeah, you mentioned that off camera, that a lot of your students are international students. So if they speak out against any of the injustices that they see unfolding with some of these measures that seem obviously nonsensical, and a fire hazard in a welding shop, they fear reprimand.
Exactly. And then when you've already had, say, a year and a half into a new country and you've already invested all this money, and then they bring in these new policies and they say, you're not going to be allowed to be a student here and you're not going to be refunded if you don't listen, well, push come to shove, they're mostly going to comply, right?
Now, what was the series of events that led to you're actually terminated now, is what I understand.
Yeah, so as of about 2 weeks ago, I was terminated on the job. So this would have been my second week back from the unpaid leave, and I'm walking through the college. But let me rewind a little bit. My boss gave me a call, or scheduled a meeting rather, for an hour and a half before my class taught, and it was in regards to reports she had received from other faculty about my conduct not wearing a mask. Well, I'm the only full-time welding professor, so that means the part-time guys lost money when I came back, and so they gained money when they got me out of the way again by telling on me, right?
So it's a tattling situation where, again, you weren't wearing the mask in the welding shop, and at this point, they were asking you to take the mask on and off depending on whether or not you were welding?
So how I got back from unpaid leave was after enough pressure, because my union didn't do their job. It was determined that we didn't have to wear the welding mask, or the mask underneath our welding helmet rather, right?
So confusing.
Exactly. And then, so I said, why have I been unpaid for 2 months then? Why have I been off work if we don't have to wear it under the helmet? And so the agreement I came with my supervisor and her boss was, as long as I kept my distance with everybody, I didn't have to wear the mask, because we didn't have to wear it in the welding shop. And I told them, I said, so we're going to continue with this. It's not going to be a problem, right? They said, no, it won't be a problem. As I'm going into the college, as I'm walking into the college, an hour and a half later, there's 2 security guards waiting for me at the door. I've never seen them there before. They're waiting. I walk into the college, and it was quite demeaning to even try to pretend to cover my face so I didn't get harassed by these security guards, police officers, whatever they were. So anyway, I go into my classroom about 1:45, and I'm writing on the board all by myself. All by myself. These 2 security guards show up into the classroom, start harassing me, get within 3 feet of me, right? Which I don't really mind, but if you're going to enforce a mandate, you have to enforce the entire mandate, not just some of it, okay? So then they come in, we had a disagreement about the mask and everything else. They ended up leaving. I told them, go talk to my boss. They come back 20 minutes later while my class is running. And they told me they needed to speak to me out in the hallway. And I says, no. I says, I am running a class right now. I cannot leave them in an unsafe territory, as it's my responsibility to make sure everything's operating correctly. But I had a feeling it was something more, go out and into the hallway. So they're trying to tell me, we have to go out in the hallway because we can't speak here because I can't hear you. And I says, what do you mean you can't hear me? They replied again. When they replied, I says, well, clearly you can hear me, right? So anyway, I had to shut down the class, forced to shut down the class, and I was escorted out of that door right there, and I'm no longer allowed on college property anymore because I refuse to wear the muzzle.
And so now you're terminated. The job.
Yep.
Is there any other
Well,
communication there?
We filed another grievance through the union. Honestly, the grievance is worse than toilet paper because you can't do anything with it. It's going to be a year before anything's done. I'll be long gone working somewhere else. I plan to fight this all the way. I mean, we know what's coming next year, so might as well, right?
Yeah, and maybe on that note, we can get your ticket that you have here for not complying with the mask bylaw, which we'll show on the screen later because I was just at White Oaks Mall, where the bylaw is listed on the door, the entryway of the mall, which notes that people who have exemptions or the exceptions to the mask mandate should be respected. And so I think this is the first mask fine that I've seen, and maybe that anyone at Rebel has seen yet. So can you tell me a little bit more about what happened there?
Sure. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the date here. I believe it was the 14th of November. So I go into Alibi Roadhouse, just down on Oxford here, go to play pool all by myself, right? Not bothering anybody. So I walk into the place, and they're the only bar that's open late. And it was around 11:30 or so, 11:45. And I walk into the door. The employee immediately yells at me to stop. I have to have a mask on. I said, no, I have an exemption. It's fine. He goes, no, you're not allowed in here. I says, what are you talking about? I have an exemption. He goes, we're not honoring exemptions at this time. I says, what? What do you mean you're not honoring exemptions at this time? You can't do that. I was like, it's in the mandate. I'll show you the law. I have the law here. I'll show you. Anyway, they wanted to fight with me. And then they started getting close to me again, in my face, trying to intimidate me to move out, to back up, get out of the restaurant. But I told them, I says, now we're in quite a pickle now, aren't we? I says, you want me to wear a mask, but your mandate that says I have to wear a mask says you have to stand 6 feet from me. So how are you going to get me to leave? I says, everybody that's sitting at the table right now, 6 feet from us, none of them are wearing a mask. Like, why? I just want to play pool. Let me go play pool. No, we're going to call the cops if you won't leave. I says, well, fine. You know what? Somebody's got to take a stand. I said, go ahead and call them. I was like, if they're real cops, if they're doing their job, if they're abiding by the oath that they took, they would enforce the mandate that says you're not allowed to discriminate against exemptions, that you are to respect others' exemptions. And so that, again, was another violation of my human rights. The police came in. They grabbed me. It was kind of funny in a sense because as they grabbed me and they're walking me out of the bar to give me a ticket, I'm telling everybody, look at the hypocrisy. Look at we have to stand 6 feet away from each other and they're on my arms. This is ridiculous.
And it all comes back to that these aren't criminal actions. You know, you are being made out and made to feel as though you're a criminal for a lone person entering a bar, keeping their distance, being respectful of others, to play a game of pool by yourself. Like, is there even an instance there where you really need to be in contact? I mean, to order a drink, pay debit, tap it, grab the drink.
And it's only select places. It's not everywhere. I've never worn a mask yet, and I never will. But the thing is, these companies that are refusing people because of their exemptions, what we need to do is make others aware that those are the companies refusing people and boycott them. I mean, what else can we do? They're going to violate our rights. To file a human rights complaint is going to be a year before that's seen, so what good is it? I mean, we need action now.
Do you have a message for the police, or have you followed up with anybody with the ticket or any further action with the college, your union?
Oh, yes, I plan to file a complaint with the police, but we know complaints don't really work. So I'll say this one last thing to all the enforcement in this country, including the military, including the police. Stand up for your people. Abide by the oath that you took. Do what's right, do your investigation and your research, and quit violating the rights of everybody else.
Well, there you have it. Another criminal for not wearing a mask. Deven Taylor. These situations, as I stated in my last report, the stories are pouring in. And Deven, you bring up a valid point that by removing someone from their place of employment, you are forcing the hand. I mean, they say that these things are voluntary, they're not mandated, there's exceptions, but we're seeing such heavy enforcement on only one side of the mandate. And when people's jobs and livelihoods are already suffering and already at stake, to further that and take it away even more on the grounds that someone is criminalized because they cannot wear a mask, where do we draw the line and where does it end? For Rebel News in London, Ontario, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Does anyone else notice that positive PCR test cases have only gone up since the mask mandate came into effect months ago? If you think it's ridiculous that we're all wearing masks when clearly they're not working to stop a virus, then check out the hilarious swag we've designed at unmask.ca to order your Masks Are Useless virtue signaling device today.